This is Actar's Reviews, from anime to figures and beyond.
Standing by. Complete.
Hey, this is Actar, and as some of you might know, I'm kind of a big Kamen Rider Faiz fan. Okay, I suppose that's an understatement, but regardless, what I'm trying to say is that I don't often do Kamen Rider roleplay toy reviews. However, I'm just so enamored with the CSM Faiz Gear that in today's video, I'd like to take a closer look at the CSM Faiz Gear and review it by comparing it with the DX Faiz Gear and pointing out the difference between the two. While doing so, I hope to explain to you why I believe the CSM Faiz Gear to be one of the best, if not the best, Kamen Rider belt sets ever released to date. So, without any further ado, let's just get right into it. First off, in terms of general design and sculpt, there's absolutely no contest. The CSM version is far superior, as it's based on the CS mode, which was in turn based on the actual screen use prop, therefore making the CSM version pretty much 1:1 scale. Starting off with the Faiz phone, some of the improved sculpting details, in addition to the covered up screw holes and the better concealed light bar, include the removal of the sculpted open mark on the battery cover and the moving of the on-off switch to a more inconspicuous location on the back. The mission memory has been completely reworked and has an intricate paint job, holographic sticker, and this accurate eye texture, concentric circles, instead of this bizarre prism pattern. The mission memory itself is completely die-cast, which adds a ton of weight and prestige to the piece. Something that I really enjoy about the CSM Faiz phone is the fact that it's very hard for the paint to scratch, not taking into account rough handling. When sliding out the mission memory, we see that there are two raised tracks on the front of the phone. Now, these raised portions are the only parts of the surface of the phone that make contact with the mission memory. So these are the only areas where the paint will wear away, leaving the rest of the surface of the phone unscathed. On the DX version, those raised portions aren't there, and despite being extremely careful, the paint right smack in the middle has started to wear away. Next, if you look at pictures of used DX Faiz phones, you'll notice that there are two more problematic areas where the paint is almost always gone. One is the hinge of the phone. With most DX Faiz phones, there is hardly any space between the cover and the hinge, causing the cover to rub against the hinge whenever the phone is opened or closed. For mine, what I did was essentially unscrew the entire cover and file it down to allow for enough clearance. Secondly, the way that the cover of the DX Faiz phone is locked in its open position is with this latch that goes underneath the cover. This will scratch after constant play. The CSM Faiz phone, on the other hand, does not have either of these problems. Firstly, there is more than enough clearance between the cover and the hinge, and it uses a completely different locking mechanism that does not rely on the latch. And also, because of the different locking mechanisms, it no longer requires the use of this rather obtrusive hinge to hold the phone closed. The antenna of the CSM Faiz phone is different from both the DX and the CS Faiz phones as well. By being a new mold and completely painted, it is 100% more show accurate, with the only downside being the fact that it's now harder to see the light up tip. Unlike the DX and CS Faiz phones, the hinge on the CSM Faiz phone blaster mode is grey to match the rest of the phone. One of the final major differences in terms of aesthetics is the keypad. Now, this one is a little bit more complicated. If you notice, the call and hang up buttons are painted in blue and red respectively. While this was true of the on-screen prop that the actors handled, once the phone was placed into the belt, the buttons turned white. So in that sense, the DX version is more accurate to the suit use belt. In terms of electronics, the CSM Faiz phone has completely different internals. Unlike the CS version, which was pretty much exactly the same as the DX one, the CSM Faiz phone has a completely new light and sound board. To compare the two, let's first fire both of them up. In general, once again, the changes were to make the CSM Faiz phone more screen accurate, which is something that I can hardly complain about. Firstly, the DX Faiz phone flashes every 10 seconds to tell you that it's on. This is not the case for the CSM version, as it never did that in the show. In terms of sound quality, the speaker of the CSM version is much clearer and more crisp, and is generally louder, save for the standby noise. For some bizarre reason, the DX version wins out in that regard. To compare the sound quality, let's just quickly activate the henshin's. Also notice that the CSM Faiz phone's light bars do not flash during standby as well. Personally speaking, I kind of miss the more flashy henshin of the DX one, but then again, the CSM version is more screen accurate. Speaking of accuracy, the CSM version adds a ton more features like extra codes, for instance, the infamous 3821.
Jet Slugger, come closer.
A flashing screen.
Standing by.
And over 30 newly recorded voice clips by Takumi's original voice actor. Something that just blows my mind is the fact that, as per the show, when entering a 4-digit code, the last tone is repeated instead of cycling back to the lowest tone like when the keys are pressed randomly. It is these little touches that often go unnoticed that really scream attention to detail that I absolutely adore. Also, as some of you might have noticed, the codes for the voice clips are not in consecutive order. I was actually rather confused until I realized that these numbers correspond to the episode numbers and movies where the lines are taken from. For instance, if you want to listen to the line from episode 8, all you have to do is press in 008 and call. Now that is fan service right there. I have to admit, however, there is something I do not like about the CSM version. Again, it's a minor detail and I don't know how many people will notice this, but unlike the DX version, these sounds do not overlap or blend together at all on the CSM version. This makes the sounds feel very disjointed. If you press the buttons too quickly, the new sound will abruptly cut the previous sound off. Let's compare the CSM version to the DX version and to the show.
Standing by.
In this regard, the DX version is much more show accurate and makes for a far more pleasant experience, as you won't have to concern yourself with allowing each sound to play out before pressing the next button. The same goes for the lights as well. Interestingly enough, you cannot actually charge the DX version when you're not in phone blaster mode. This makes perfect sense, but you can do so in the CSM version.
Charge.
Moving on, and let's bring in the drivers. Sculpting and paint is again top notch on the CSM version, with my favorite detail being the paint on the sides of the holder. This is something that even the CS version lacked. The black panel lining is absolutely beautiful, and it's so much better proportioned than the DX version. While the CSM Faiz phone doesn't flash, they make up for it by adding lights to the belt. There's a physical button on the inner side that tells the belt when the henshin is complete. This is not only so much more show accurate, it makes the belt so much more indispensable than the DX belt, which hardly serves any purpose by itself. This is why I like the Sengoku driver over the double driver, and this is also why I really enjoy the CSM's wireless gimmick, which we'll be getting to in just a bit. Alrighty, it's time to take a look at the complete henshin. First the DX version and then the CSM version.
Standing by. Complete. Standing by. Complete.
For the CSM version, the belt can wirelessly detect when an exceed charge is activated. By pressing the enter key on the Faiz phone, it sends out a signal that is received by the belt, the pointer, and the shot.
Exceed charge.
For the belt, you only have 2 minutes after transforming to do this, as the belt will go into sleep mode after 2 minutes of non-activity to conserve battery life. To get it ready to receive a signal again, simply turn it off and on, or press the physical side button again. Something that I did not like about the DX Faiz phone was the fact that you could not activate an exceed charge after changing the phone's mode. In episode 3, Takumi blasts away at the off knock and activates an exceed charge immediately after. With the DX toy, activating the phone blaster mode cancels the henshin, and you will have to henshin again in order to activate an exceed charge. Not so for the CSM Faiz phone. Once you henshin once, you can still activate exceed charges after accessing phone blaster mode.
Single mode. Exceed charge.
This I was super impressed with. Speaking of errors, both of them will reward you with an error noise if you attempt to exceed charge without transforming first. And as if that wasn't enough, the CSM Faiz phone has a button hidden in the front that activates the henshin and de-henshin sounds for axle form.
Complete. Deformation.
Again, this is wirelessly transmitted to the belt, which activates a different light-up pattern. You have to replicate this manually on the DX version with a push of the trigger. And of course, the axle's reformation sound is nowhere to be heard even on the watch. So that's pretty much it for the main belt. On to the rest of the Faiz Gear, the pointer and the shot. Unlike the CS Faiz Gear, these actually have electronics in them. Starting off with the pointer, I am so glad that all of the chrome is gone. I know that there are some chrome lovers out there, but in all honesty, I absolutely despise chrome. It scratches easily, attracts fingerprints like crazy, and can even chip and flake off depending on how well it's applied. Also, the proportions are completely fixed on the CSM version. It no longer has a bar running through the barrel. It has added black-pink detailing and a holographic sticker on the front that matches the Faiz mission memory. Of course, the main selling point of the CSM Faiz pointer, pardon the pun, is its ability to project the Faiz symbol to replicate the killing of an off knock. While this is an extremely cool feature, this is in detriment to the actual pointer mode. As we know, the Faiz Gear are modeled after and disguised as regular electronic devices. A phone, camera and flashlight, with the pointer being a flashlight. The DX version pulls off the flashlight mode flawlessly. By pressing the button once, the flashlight activates. The CSM version projects a logo instead. On top of that, you have to keep holding the button down to keep it projecting. This means that it can't even function as a proper sight or targeting reticule for the phone blaster unless you're holding the button down, which is supremely awkward. Because it doesn't need to project anything, the DX version even has additional crosshair detailing in the barrel. But when it comes to molded detail, just like with all of the other DX toys, it has really obtrusive logos and markings that the CSM version does not. Moving on to the Faiz shot, the CSM version again does a far better job in replicating its show counterpart as it's based directly on the show prop, while the DX version looks like a scaled down replica. With the CSM Faiz shot, we have extra details including an additional camera function and a battery indicator. The lights in the front are also made of translucent plastic, and the extra SB555C logo is removed. Function-wise, they're pretty much similar as well. Pressing the shutter button causes the flash to light up and the camera to make a shutter sound. Note that the lights are different colors, the DX one being orange and the CSM version being completely white. For the final part of the video, the final attacks. What the CSM version has that blows the DX version out of the water is the wireless gimmick. As I've mentioned previously, the wireless gimmick not only makes the experience more show accurate and hassle-free, it gives a purpose to every single action that you make. When it comes to the DX version, pressing the enter button is technically unnecessary as it doesn't really do anything other than make the noise. And it can sometimes feel like you're doing it just for the sake of it. Not to mention, manually having to activate the pointer and shot doesn't really make for an immersive play experience. For the CSM version, sliding the mission memory into the pointer or shot will get them ready to receive a wireless transmission from the Faiz phone. You only have a minute to do this before you have to reinsert the mission memory, as the pointer and shot will go into sleep mode to conserve battery life after a minute of non-activity. So first, the Crimson Smash.
Ready. Exceed charge.
While the projection feature is awesome, the internal LED is not able to light up the barrel as the beam of light is very directional, making it really lackluster, especially when you have it pointing at the ground. The eyes of the mission memory don't even light up like they do in the show. For comparison, let's take a look at the DX version. So for the Faiz pointer, to be dreadfully honest, I'm kind of leaning towards the DX one in terms of the lights and sounds. And finally, the Grand Impact.
Ready. Exceed charge.
This is pretty much perfect. It replicates the final attack sequence from the show to a T, what with the light up mission memory thanks to an LED in the lens of the camera, the automatic charging and the white lights. For the DX version, you have to manually charge it up and the lights are red and have a different light up pattern. I have to admit that I do miss the flashiness of the DX version, but the CSM version is pretty much perfect. When it comes to the Faiz shot, I have absolutely zero complaints and I couldn't ask for anything more. One major benefit of the shot being larger is that an adult can easily fit their entire hand into the grip, and by pressing the button on the CSM version, you get punching sounds and lights. All in all, the wireless gimmick is a stellar example of the perfect application of modern-day toy technology to facilitate an experience that any Faiz fan will appreciate. Last but not least, for the sake of completion, it is also worth noting that the belt strap is all one piece of soft plastic with adjustable side ports and back clip, and the Faiz pointer and shot holders are all given a new coat of paint. The CSM Faiz Gear also comes with a connector piece that allows you to attach the Faiz pointer to the Faiz phone in blaster mode. Though I still can't recall Faiz ever having used this outside of the promo adverts. So in conclusion, I have to say that in my opinion, the CSM Faiz Gear is one of the best Kamen Rider belt sets ever produced. I mean, it's pretty much a complete selection Kamen Rider belt released in the CSM line. And speaking of the CSM line, I'm actually very happy with how far it has come and how they've been constantly upping their game with each release. At first, when they started off with the double belts, the only changes were completely aesthetic, which is one of the reasons I haven't gotten any of them. We then went on to the Kabuto Zactor, and this is where they started to make distinct improvements and additions to the original toys, with additional die-cast in the horn, an additional rider kick sound, and a clock-up pad, which if you think about it is really a no-brainer and something that everyone has been wanting for a long time. From there we had the Deca driver with all of the cards and sounds on the show, together with the ability to play background music. We then had the DN driver that added in the ability to scan cards. Yes, the original DX DN driver was pretty useless. And finally, we get to the Faiz Gear, which is pretty much built from the ground up, using the complete selection mode as a base. In summary, the attention to detail and perfect application of technology is what makes this an absolutely phenomenal release. So end of this video, let's take a look at the box and the instruction manual of the CSM Faiz Gear, because these, I think, are indicative of the philosophy of the current CSM line. The box is made out to look like the Faiz Gear box, and the instruction manual is made out to look like the user's guide from the show, even though it's way too big to be 1:1 scale. This is the attention to detail that I was talking about, and these elements just round off the entire package and make it a treat from start to finish. And that's pretty much what the CSM Faiz Gear is. A treat for the fans. So, this is Zach saying, see you guys in the next episode, open your eyes for the next Faiz, and